Buhari launches tools for project monitoring across the
Federal Executive Council approves life assurance for police officers.
Federal government projects 260 billion naira from sale of assets in first quarter of 2023 to finance budget.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we'll take a critical look at passport reforms and challenges.
Good morning. The recent directive by the Comptroller General of Immigration that passport offices nationwide should open on Saturdays in a bid to fast-track passport application processes, particularly for Nigerians returning home from abroad, suggests that all is not well with passport administration in Nigeria. Claire.
Well, indeed, in recent times, some Nigerians have also decried delays in processing their passports. They have also raised concerns about alleged extortion at passport offices, both at home and abroad. And according to them, getting a Nigerian passport has not only become a Herculean task, but some say the proverbial, passing through the eye of a needle, of a camel, is much easier than getting a Nigerian passport. So last year, a report claimed that about 1.5 million Nigerians in Italy alone were in need of Nigerian passports to return to their homeland.
And, Claire, what is amazing is the fact that Nigeria does not produce its own passports. And they said a booklet, despite owning a printing and minting company. Well, for people that paid online, more hurdles await them as they were allegedly given cold shoulders by officers for doing the right thing.
Jermaine, printing highly security sensitive material like the passport has to pass through the standards of ICAO, that's International Civil Aviation Organization, and most of the parts needed are not produced in Nigeria. And so many other countries source these different components from different parts of the world, including the developed countries.
So people argue that all these components are gotten, the raw materials are gotten from Africa.
Well, we'll get to know that. That's why we are having this conversation. The Nigeria Immigration Service says it introduced the enhanced passport to curb all manner of, what will I say, passport racketeering, including forgery. It also banned cash payments for passport application, and it says all this simply to make the process seamless, and of course applicants to acquire or obtain their passports in a very less cumbersome and transparent manner. Now, again, that was to phase out middlemen, racketeers, as I said earlier, as well as the attendant extra charges. Cost.
Wow. Yeah. In quotes. And now, meanwhile, a decline in the socio-economic situation and increasing insecurity in the country are compelling Nigerians to want to immigrate, thereby increasing the demand for passports, and applicants end up paying multiples, of the actual sum there. And which the Nigerian Immigration Service put at 25,000 naira for 32 pages, 5 years validity, 35,000 naira for 64 pages, 5 years validity, and 70,000 naira for 64 pages, 10 years validity.
All right, so the big question, and I always like to use this phrase, Jume, how did we get here?
Yeah.
I mean, it is a phrase that's in a lot of
It was so easy to walk in and get your passport the next day. What changed?
What changed? So, and really, the bigger question will be what the Nigerian Immigration Service is doing to salvage the situation. What kind of reforms is ongoing? We hear there are quite a number of backlogs, but we also hear from the Minister of Interior that there are no backlogs of booklets. So all these are some of the issues.
We just have to accept that COVID-19 really dealt a huge blow to so many infrastructure, and I'm sure it also dealt a blow to the immigration service, because 2 years of not being functional, and most people, there was no travel. I believe they sort of, the backlog just kept increasing and increasing, and I don't think it's the fault of the immigration or the fault of the people, but circumstances beyond their control.
Well, we'll get to know. So these are some of the issues that Good Morning Nigeria will have to examine today as we again beam our searchlight on passport reforms challenges. I am Claire Adilabu Abdurazak. I'd like to thank you once again for joining us on another edition of the program with my beautiful sister, Jume.
Aren't we all beautiful? In and out. And as usual, we have our segments coming, you know, on the network service of the NTA as the program progresses. We have our newspaper review, business, and sports. But first of all, Claire is here with the highlights of the news.
And we begin with launches of a tool for project monitoring and the first homegrown and nationally coordinated citizen-driven tool for monitoring and evaluation of capital projects across the country called iMark has been launched by the federal government. President Muhammadu Buhari, who performed the ceremony, described the monitoring and evaluation of projects implementation as critical towards ensuring that they are not only successful, but impactful to Nigerians and the economy.
Not only does this address pressing M&E issues, but it also institutes accountability and transparency in the system, in line with my commitment to Nigerians and the open government partnership. This administration has invested more than any administration in infrastructure. But unless we closely monitor our investments, they will yield less value.
And the Federal Executive Council has approved over 160 billion naira for expenditure towards enhancing the nation's critical infrastructure in the works, housing and transportation subsectors of the economy.
The second was presented on behalf of FEMA. It's for the award of contract for the construction of the Sherry North Road in Lagos that connects Ogun State and is an alternative route between Lagos and Ogun to the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway.
The justification for this project is the need to align with best technology in order to achieve a wider and faster reach, as well as a seamless revenue generation drive in line with the transformation objectives of the authority through technology.
The Nigeria Police Force now has a group life assurance cover for its personnel across the country. This followed approval by the Federal Executive Council of contracts for the engagement of insurance underwriters and brokers for the scheme covering the year 2020 and 2023. The Minister of Police Affairs, Mohammed Gari Dinyadi, announced this while briefing journalists after the council's meeting.
The essence of this memo is to ensure that we pay whatever is due to the families of our officers as and when due, to encourage our officers and men who have been working day and night to ensure the security of lives and property in this country, to appreciate the hard work they are doing.
And House of Representatives has considered and approved the sum of 95.2 billion naira budget for the Federal Government Power Company Limited. The amount covers recurrent and capital expenditures as well as overhead and personnel costs for 2022. A breakdown indicates that 91.5 billion naira for capital to be used for the funding of procurements in the Siemens Energy and Federal Government Power Agreement. Chairman of the House Committee on Power, Magaji Aliyu, explains that the project is being implemented under the Presidential Power Initiative, which aims to realize generation of additional megawatts of electricity for delivery to households and businesses across Nigeria.
This will augment the work that the government is doing to fund the Presidential Power Initiative project, which is popularly called the Siemens project.
And President Muhammadu Buhari has transmitted the 2022 supplementary budget of 819.5 billion naira to the Senate for consideration. The additional fund is to mainly address the challenges posed by the 2022 flood that devastated parts of the country.
The water sector was equally affected by the flood, and there is the need to complete some ongoing critical projects that have achieved about 85% completion. The 9 critical projects proposed in the sector cut across water supply, dam projects, and irrigation projects nationwide.
And the federal government, through the Bureau of Public Enterprises, says it is expecting to make 260 billion in the first quarter of 2023 to finance the budget. Director General of the Bureau, Alex Oko, says the stage is now set for the sale of 5 national integrated power projects. The sale, he says, is part of ongoing reforms around the nation's assets.
Getting a common stakeholder understanding on the critical need to realize value from those assets now before they depreciate beyond value. Thankfully, last week we were able to resolve the issues with the governor. So for those assets, we're likely to reach financial opening of the bids before the end of the year, which is maybe next week.
And those are highlights of the morning news. Good morning, Nigeria. We'll continue in just a moment with Jumei and me.
The 15th edition of the PMB Administration Scorecard Series will feature the Honorable Minister of Police Affairs, Alhaji Mohammed Meigeri Ingyadi. Date, Thursday, 22nd December 2022. Time, 10:30 a.m. Venue, National Press Center, Radio House, Abuja. The event will be broadcast live by NTA, FRCN, and VON, and streamed on the social media handles of the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture. Announcer, Mrs. Lydia Shehu Jafia, MNI, Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
People they say, Tinubu Kainchara. Don't West Yoruba they say, Tinubu Lafayette. Sounds, the people they shout, Tinubu we want. Even from North Hausa they say, Tinubu Mikeso. All our country people they talk with one voice. Them say na Asiwaju Bola Tinubu them want as president of Nigeria for this president election.
Asiwaju Bola Tinubu na the man where we all know and see all the good work in they do for we country, especially when he be governor of Lagos State.
Now him God use turn Lagos to the best state for Nigeria.
Today, many people all over Nigeria they like to go Lagos, go settle down for business and better life.
All because of the good work when Bola Tinubu do.
People of Nigeria, as Asiwaju do for Lagos, now so him ready to do am for the whole country.
Vote Asiwaju Bola Tinubu for president of Nigeria. Vote Kashim Shettima as vice president. Vote APC, the party we get a broom.
We want
Introducing an all-time mega offer. Get over 50% discount in the Airtel Home Broadband mega offer. Buy a router for just 10,000 naira and get up to 240 gigabyte or a MiFi for 5,000 naira and get up to 125 gigabyte bonus data. More data, more you. Reliable home broadband bar.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
The chairman and members of Senate Committee on Finance cordially invite stakeholders and the general public to a public hearing on the amendment of the following acts: Finance Bill 2022. The public hearing is scheduled to hold as follows. Date: Thursday, 22nd December 2022. Time: 11 a.m. Venue: Conference Hall 231, Senate New Building, National Assembly Complex, Abuja. Consequently, the underlisted stakeholders are expected to make presentation at the public hearing. For further inquiries, contact the committee clerk on 081-7436-4772. Senator Solomon Adiola, announcer.
As we close a successful year 2022 and prepare for the start of a better year 2023, the Nigeria Television Authority, NTA, wishes to appreciate and share the love with all who gave us a year to remember for good. The three arms of government, ministries, departments and agencies, corporate bodies and advertisers, religious bodies, civil society groups and political parties. Most importantly, you, our esteemed viewer, we say thank you. Together, we made 2022 great. Let's make 2023 greater. Once again, we say thank you, wishing you a Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year from all of us at the NTA. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
Give me a Risco tomato instead. I go give you imported tomato. Be like saying that people like you, the wicked our country people. You see this Risco, Richico or Nachico, They take correct natural ingredients, make them. If not made in Nigeria, like a Risco, get many benefits. It help grow our economy. And job plentiful, nyafo nyafo. And when you put them inside mouth, it's sweet and it dig the one for.
Buy made in Nigeria. Buy a Risco product.
Right, welcome back. If you've just joined the program, it's Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service, the NTA. You can't beat the rich. Let's talk business now. Central Bank of Nigeria has issued new regulations on cash withdrawal limit across all channels. Let's get all the details from Comfort Amodu.
The Central Bank of Nigeria says it has reviewed and revised the cash withdrawal limit to maximum weekly limits across all channels to 500,000 for individuals and 5 million naira for corporate organizations. In a letter by Director of Banking Supervision of the CBN, Haruna Mustafa told deposit banks and other financial institutions, the Apex Bank said the move became necessary based on feedback received from key players. The letter indicates that the processing fee of 3% for individual and 5% for corporate organizations will be charged in compelling circumstances where cash withdrawal above the limits is required for legitimate purposes. The CBN says it recognized the vital role cash plays in supporting the underserved and rural communities and will ensure an inclusive approach as it implements the transition to more cashless society. And based on the reviewed National Integrated Infrastructure Master Plan, federal government says $2.3 trillion is required to close infrastructural gap in the country. Minister of State for Finance, Budget and National Planning, Clem Agba, at a media party in Abuja said the new master plan provided the roadmap for building a world-class infrastructure that would guarantee sustainable growth and development in Nigeria.
In the next 10 years, we really need to spend about $150 annually in order to quickly fill up that gap. Of course, you know that there's time value of money, so if it's not done earlier, the value in terms of the gap will only get widened.
Stocks trading in the Nigerian market advanced marginally following market's reaction to possible entry of startups as declared by the market authorities. At the close of trade, the all share index rose to 49,475.43 points, and equity capitalization ended the session at 26.947 trillion naira. University Press, Thomas Watson, Africa Prudential led the gainers stable, while Japol Mutual Benefits and FTN Cocoa led the losers. With business news, Comfort Amodu.
Thank you, Comfort, for the business news. Now it's time for newspaper review with Chukwudi Okole Baji.
Joe, Mike, thanks.
All right. We missed the introductory part of that. You may would have just come up with this thing to introduce you. But Chooks the boy.
Yes, I
did you know? It's Chooks the boy.
You told me about him a long time.
Jumai has reappeared. You know, when I hear that name,
disappear.
those of us in the South, we have this way of murdering. Oh, this is AMTV, no harsh words.
Yes.
We have this name, a way of distorting northern names.
Yes.
There's a way it's pronounced by, people who are from the north.
Yes.
Jumai, there's a way you...
It's Jumai.
Jumai.
It's double M.
I will call it...
Chooks, let's get on with this.
Jumai. Then there's another one.
You can take that
Manya. Those of us from the South will say, Manya.
Manya.
You can take those
it's so
lessons
sweet.
from Jumai.
Yes.
Let's get to the paper review.
Yeah.
Let me quickly go. We have some busy headlines this morning. Let's start with the Daily Sun, where just beside the masthead, FG admits death of dozens in Zamfara community. Military airstrikes and apologizes for mistake. You find the details on page 6. Reps proposes 4 years jail term, 2 million for offenders of female genital mutilation. You find the details on page 4. And the headlines in the Daily Sun newspaper: CBN bows to pressure, increases withdrawal limit. With rider, individual now 500,000 weekly, and corporate 5 million. You find details on page 2. And by the side piece of the picture story there, Buhari inaugurates IMARC to empower citizens to monitor capital projects real time. Details on page 27. IGP declares war on gunmen in Southeast. With riders, says end of criminals masquerading as freedom fighters near. Troops raid IPOP ESN camps in Ebonyi and Enugu. Delta APC loses 5 in boat mishap. PDP campaign's chieftain driver die in road crash. Find details on page 28. FG forecloses Eastern Rail Corridor. Sanwa Olu Hamzat orders test run Blue Rail as Lagos completes first phase. Details on page 8 and 7. MFLA explains non-appearance before reps in Naira notes redesign. With rider blames absence on health ground. And NSCDC uncovers plot to attack INEC facilities. With riders put state commandants on alert. It's ploy to scuttle poll, says PDP. Details on page 4. And at the bottom plate, Buhari sends 819.5 billion supplementary budget to National Assembly on flood. Claire?
Yes, okay. So let's take a look at the New Telegraph, and I'll just take the lead story there. It says, we'll deal with criminals hiding under agitations, says IGP. You can read up the stories on pages 2, 4, 6, and 28. And it comes with a rider. As police kill 4 IPOB members in Ebonyi, recover Russian-made grenades, declare full-scale probe of southern Kaduna attacks. Gunmen kill 2 police officers in Kogi, and Christmas. Fortify your areas, Niger CP tells officers. And just a little above that lead story, below the nameplate, service-wide vote. Senate gives Interior Ministry 24 hours to defend 700 million naira received for polls. And security unity will be my priority. Of course, that's a political for Obi. Imo, after months of manhunt, DSS nabs serial killer Ejima and others. That story is on page 7. And another story trending just above the nameplate, withdrawal. We heard about that in our business news by Comfort Omodu. Withdrawal limit, CBN backpedals. Individuals now 0.5 million, while corporates 5 million. But let me come down again to some of the stories trending on the right column. Why CBN public institutions should be independent by Lord Hannon, and it faults attempts to harass Emefiele. Now, 200 babies born in Benue IDP camps, not just in Benue IDP camps, all over the camps across the country. Now, politicians buying PVCs, wasting their money and time. That is INEC. We will jail politicians who violate executive orders 21 and 22. And this is a very beautiful picture story there, and I'm just drawing Chukwudi's attention to it. It's the Blue Rail Line, inaugurated by the Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu. Of course, is the first phase of the Lagos Rail Mass Transit Blue Line, running from Marina End to Mile 2. And of course, it has its station at the National Theatre in Blue Line Station in Igomu, Lagos. I think this is a very beautiful development. I just wish we would have, this scattered across the country. I remember sometime in Rivers State, the former Rivers State Governor, the SY Minister of Transportation, started this monorail.
That's it.
Yes.
Yes.
In the Port Harcourt.
When rail.
No, let's quickly go through the papers, then you can.
It's okay.
About
Oh, you're still giving us more
yes,
headlines?
Yes, we have blueprints.
When is talking time?
Okay, let's go. We have blueprint. I'm going to take some of the headlines. Just below the masthead, we have 6 years after is a cause of concern. We need to talk about it. FG reverses self, stops polytechnics awarding degrees. With riders, says polytechnics orders should stick to technical courses. Universities, polytechnics exist for different purposes. You find the details on page 6. And the federal government requires 819 billion to fix infrastructure ravaged by flood. With rider, Buhari raises supplementary budget to augment with local borrowing. 2022 budget deficit now 1.7 trillion. GDP ratio 4.43%. President launches digital application to monitor, evaluate capital projects. And Senate seeks approval for 23.7 trillion CBN Ways and Means advances. Details on page 6. And we see people waiting to collect their permanent voters card at the Independent National Electoral Commission at the Abuja Municipal Area Council in Abuja Wednesday. One interesting story there is Hajj 2023. Saudi restores Nigeria's 95,000 slots, removes age limit. PCR test. With rider returns 107 million to Nakon over poor feeding. Indeed, that money had to, because the feeding was really, really bad last year during the Hajj. And hoodlums killed 2 policemen in Lokoja. Emefiele yields to public demand, increases cash limit to 0.5 million weekly. Find details on page 23. I think the rest of the headlines can be discussed in the course of the review.
Claire, you started off this way. You talked about the Blue Rail project. Let me say quickly that if it's not real yet, no one is serious yet about metropolitan transportation, whether it's a road, metropolitan transportation, because of the fact that rail takes volume that does not disturb the metropolis. Because at a point, you go underground. It is the best way to go. So that is highly commendable. But let me quickly go to the CBN bowing to pressure. Editors would always look for ways to... CBN is bowing. You understand? Yes. We could have chosen another word. But then we are journalists and we must get you to read our paper. Yeah. So they have bowed, okay? They have reviewed the cash withdrawal policy. Individuals can now get up to 500,000 naira weekly, while corporate bodies can go to 5 million. Now, remember, Kingsley and I talked about this, and we tended to agree that the limit of 100,000, that has now been jettisoned, was going to pose a problem to POS.
Yes.
I mean, that's
Yes,
a
we had
truth.
this conversation here.
You do not engage a policy that is not going to help somebody's commerce. I mean, it will thwart a few things.
Especially small
intentions are good,
businesses, yes.
but implementation sometimes, you know. So that is quite commendable.
You know, my concern is, what did we have to, you know, did they have to get to the stage it did before the CBN realized, you know, the import of that policy? I mean, it was a policy that most Nigerians, you know, didn't agree with, and I'm sure I'm wondering, you know, what prompted the change of mind now.
I am not in I don't work for the CBN. Neither am I competent to write a pamphlet on reading Emefiele's mind. But let me say that maybe sometimes when you want 3 things done, you introduce 8. So that before the process of reduction happens, up
just to
3,
test the waters.
Yes, sometimes. We don't know. Let's not speculate. We're
The UK
journalists.
just changed their currency and to run until 2024 so that it can ease the transition. What can it be done here? Why do we like this fire brigade approach to things in this country?
Juma, you're asking me to write a big book on psychological disposition towards certain things, which has held some of us back. You're not going to deride good old Africa. That's a topic for another day.
Yeah.
That's topic for another day. So I think this is something we should commend.
Let's talk about the polytechnics now.
Yeah, we'll go to the polytechnics, but let me quickly say this. I keep asking, if dialogue settles most of man's problems, why don't we engage it as early as we can? The first thing was that when this furore started, the CBN governor went to the president, and there was this photo opportunity between him and the president, which I think was body language. The presidency was expressing support for whatever he was doing. But people still felt that this policy was not exactly the way it should be. And the Speaker of the House of Representatives went to the president and had a tete-a-tete with him. I don't think that it was Emefiele that suddenly did all this. For crying out loud, there's a president. Dialogue is key in everything we do in life.
Exactly.
I thought I should make that point.
And
Very
then,
important.
okay, just the last one, Chukwudi, if you may, in less than 60 seconds. Politicians buying PVCs, wasting their money and time. And I'm just flabbergasted that indeed they don't realize that beavers, you know, will identify identity theft. I mean,
yes, identity theft
so
and fake voters.
You know, you see, again, I'm not a psychologist. The way I will quickly say I'm not an economist here, so that you guys don't pull me out too much. But let me say that a criminal mind is a stubborn mind.
Yes.
Indeed.
There are people you can do whatever you want to do about.
They will try to
It is laws that restrain them.
Yeah.
Something inside them still goes, still pushes, still dares them to go and do that which is stupid. So let them try it. They say beavers is the final solution to all those manipulations. So help us, INEC. Okay? That's it.
All right.
Okay, in
The polytechnic thing?
FG reverse itself. Briefly,
Yes.
in 30 seconds, please, let's talk about this.
I don't know what is behind reversing it. What I'm going to say is, please, I don't want to hear a continuation of this debate about which one is superior.
Which one is not?
I don't want to hear that. But if this is about one institution being research-based and the other one being in a position to produce hands-on people who would come out of school and begin to help themselves, self-employed and all that. But let me quickly say too, that even the universities are supposed to, it should take some words of caution. Producing people who come out and they are not able to do a few things for themselves is not the best. And I have a personal experience. I was lucky to be one of the pioneer lecturers at an academy.
Chukwudi, I don't know if
and we went to a school where we got people to know news writing properly, camera handling and all that. And 7 people out of 25 said, I think we would now go to a newsroom. We just wanted this mass communication certificate for the heck of it, then we go into other things.
Chukwudi,
so that is very important.
Okay, Chukwudi, thank you so much for the paper review.
And Claire knows I talk too much.
Yeah,
That's why she silenced me.
We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. We take a break. When we return, our conversation on the immigration passport reforms and all that will begin. Do stay.
2022 Armed Forces Remembrance Day celebration is here again. The Nigeria Armed Forces work tirelessly day and night to give us peace to go about our businesses. Some have paid the supreme price. Should we forget the families and loved ones they left behind? No.
I am therefore privileged to honor these veterans who devoted most of their lives, active lives, to securing the nation and the world at large.
So, let's support the Nigerian Armed Forces and their families, corporate organizations, government agencies, parastatals, and individuals. Let's show our love and support for our armed forces. They are our heroes. Buy the Armed Forces Remembrance Emblem and donate into the Armed Forces Remembrance Emblem Appeal account. We love you, and your labor and sacrifice will not be in vain for spilling your blood for us to live.
Critical military objectives of total defeats of the terrorists in the Northeast is already being achieved. Synchronized group and air operations have continued to inflict huge casualties on the terrorists, and they have been forcing many of them, including their commanders and emirs, to surrender in droves with members of their families. Whilst areas where terrorists hitherto had some freedom of actions are being cleared and socio-economic life is gradually returning to the most parts of the Northeast, as while internal displaced persons are now returning to their ancestral homes to start life all over in dignity under safe and more secure environment.
This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
To every politician, as the campaigns gain momentum and passions begin to rise, remember, the errors of your opponents do not make you a success. Do not run down your opponent and inflame passions to violence between and among your supporters. What counts is what you plan to do for the electorate and how you intend to relieve the sufferings and bring succor. Nigeria is in dire need of patriotic leaders at all levels, leaders who will make national development their priority. Concentrate on telling the electorate what you intend to do when you get into office. Focus on making your vision clear to the electorate. Don't engage in verbal abuses, fake news or speeches. Keep dealing with issues that will bring progress. You win the hearts and minds of the people by being above board, by being civil, patriotic, and showing empathy. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. A message from the National Orientation Agency.
The Council of Our Fathers.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it will run away from it.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
And to begin our conversation on immigration passport issues and challenges, here's a background report put together by Joseph Osen.
The Nigerian international passport was once described by the Minister of Interior, Rauf Arigbesola, at an event as the highest affirmation of citizenship and source of existence for Nigerians abroad. This perhaps explains why Nigerians are so eager to access or renew their passports. But accessing this national book has continued to be a heckling task for many, despite reforms adopted by the Nigeria Immigration Service to improve service delivery. Even as the service insists The waiting time for a first-time passport is 6 weeks after biometric capture and 3 weeks for a renewal. Testimonies from Nigerians indicate these are far-fetched. Reports of persons waiting even up to a year and more. Allegations of corruption in the system keep coming up, while a backlog of applications still lie in most passport offices. The Nigerian Immigration Service has attributed much of the delay in issuance of the e-passport and renewal to shortages of booklets, name verification and confirmation, and other bottlenecks impeding speedy and effective processing. The COVID-19 pandemic is also said to have played a huge part as operations and movements globally were halted. For better service delivery, the Nigerian Immigration Service has introduced reforms and innovations in digital technology over time to make the process less rigorous and clean up its house of corruption. One of the major steps taken is the integration of the online appointment system with the existing online payment, where an applicant can make payment and choose the appointment date and time convenient to him. Another is the introduction of tracking system for the monitoring of status of passport application by applicants at comfort zones. The service also set up a diaspora desk and launched a service charter as helpline for personnel and applicants towards speedy and effective delivery at all service points across the world. These reforms to the immigration service has greatly reduced allegations of corruption and improved services. It says, by April 2022, passport applications yet to be processed reduced to 33,625 locally and 9,661 in diaspora, against 85,163 and 18,746 in 2022. But continuous congestion at Nigeria's passport service points and long days of waiting remain a source of worry to many Nigerians across the world. What then are the reasons behind the challenge? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will analyze the factors playing out and share perspectives.
Joseph Otseng, many thanks for that comprehensive report. We also had an insight, deep insight into what is happening in some of those passport centers. Of course, that report was done by our correspondent Victor Azu. But let me welcome the guests to give us more perspective to what's happening. Passport reforms and challenges. I have right in the studio. Let me welcome Tony Akuneme, and of course Tony is the Deputy Controller of Immigration DCI and Public Relations Officer, Nigeria Immigration Service. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We also have here in the studio Dr. Karim Olajoku, who is the Technical Advisor, Innovation and Strategy to the Minister of Interior. We appreciate you being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Dr. Abdurrahman Abu Hamiso is a familiar face with us. He's right here with us in the studio. He's a political scientist, researcher, and public affairs analyst. Dr. Abdurrahman Hamiso, thank you once again.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigerians.
And we also have seated here in the studio Ambassador Ahmed Umar Malik in Kano, former Nigerian ambassador to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. He also served in various countries, including the USA and United Kingdom, where he undertook some reforms in immigration matters in the mission. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, and good morning.
We also have joining us via Zoom from the United States of America, New York in particular, the Director Consular and Legal Affairs Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Nicholas Ella. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, gentlemen, it's a pleasure to have you with us right here in the studio. I think it would be most appropriate if we begin our conversation with the DCI to give us an insight into what is the current narrative. Someone, jokingly remarked that it is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than to obtain a Nigerian passports now. With regards to passport administration, what's the current narrative?
Thank you very much. The narrative as we speak, remains the same, that we are committed to issuing passports on record time, like if it's a first-time applicant, 6 weeks, and if it is a reissue, that is, you had one before, 3 weeks. Now, but there are a couple of issues that come to play. Now, we introduced, for instance, the online application process. And what that means is you have to book your appointment date. Most of these complaints we get is from centers like Lagos, for instance, where even though we have had to have 3 passport offices, the crowd is still unbelievable. If you go to Enugu, nobody is having issues with passports. You can get it within 2-3 weeks. If you go to Nasarawa, you probably get it in one week or 2. If you go to Jigawa, it's the same thing. If you go to Owerri. So there are high concentration of demand for passport in certain areas like Abuja, like Lagos. Matter of fact, in the next few weeks, we are opening like 2 more offices, front offices in Lagos. I mean, one in Alimosho, and then in some southwestern states like Oyo, like one in Ilesha. We're opening in Zaria. We're opening in Daura. This is in the next few weeks. Because we found out that people just imagine that, oh, some people even have the feeling that it's only passport issued in Lagos that the embassies will accept. You won't believe it. So a lot of what we have decided to do is to change the narrative, to create a lot of sensitization, which is what you will help us do, to inform Nigerians. First of all, you don't need to wait until your passport expires before you begin to look for a fire brigade to renew it. Before 6 months or within 6 months, you could start early to plan your journey. That's what most people do who are like civilized. Plan your journey. Check your, most times what you hear is, oh, my office nominated me for a trip. I didn't know my passport had expired. And you want us to give you same day or same, and you begin to look for shortcuts, and that you fall into the hands of maybe miscreants or agents or touts or something, and they rip you off, and then they say, oh, immigration. Now again, we have the synchronization of the NIN with the passport issuance. That wasn't there before until the enhanced passport that was just introduced a few years ago, like last year, 2019 specifically. Now, what it means is that your information on your NIN must match with your information on your passport application. Match in the sense that even if you are like Abdul Razak Clay in your passport, you can't be Clay Abdul Razak in your NIN. It won't allow the officer to produce it. The system will not allow the passport to be produced. And then it will continue to blink like something is wrong, something is wrong. So it might even take a day or 2 to find out, to query the system and find out what is wrong. And then by the time, not everybody will notice that Clay Abdul Razak and Abdul Razak Clay, there's a problem about it. I've had a lawyer who told me, this is my name. You have to give me this passport. And I'm like, it's not us, it's the system. And we're trying to protect Nigerians. We're trying to manage identity theft and all that.
Could this be the reason why some applicants who, despite the fact that they applied earlier than the expiry date on there, they have not received? Because we have a lot of them even here.
Absolutely.
In the office here.
Absolutely. I'm aware of all the complaints and all that, and we're working round the clock. But to be honest with you, Nigerians don't know this. Most Nigerians don't know this, and we're happy to have this kind of program to sensitize them.
Why don't Nigerians know it? When you have new reforms, are you not supposed to sensitize the public?
We have
inform the public.
That's what we're doing.
That has not been in the public domain.
Yeah, well, we're
telling them the processes and the reforms you're going through.
That's what we're doing, and maybe it wasn't done as much as we have determined to do it, going forward. Because to be honest with you, a lot of these issues won't come up if people knew what was even on their NIN. Half of Nigerians who have NIN don't have an idea what information is in it, because what you only see on the slip is just your name. You don't even see your date of birth on the slip. But when we now want to issue your passport, because it's synchronized, we see that your date of birth is not even something you believe is for you. And
so what to do when something like that happens?
What to do is to tell the applicant to go back to NIN and correct it, which they are doing. But now, you won't even believe again that we have over 100,000 uncollected passports in Nigeria. We also have over 1,000 applications that we cannot reach the owners to even tell them the problem they have, but they are waiting for their passports. And do you know why? Most 80% of the time, people don't fill their passport forms themselves.
That's documentation error.
Errors.
Yes.
The phone numbers are not working, or they are not correct, or they are not complete. The emails are not existent. You will see somebody that is filling a form, and where they call for mobile phone, he puts 090000000. So they were just in a hurry to get it completed and submit and go. Now, how do you reach that kind of Nigerian? And he's sitting somewhere in his house and complaining that his passport has taken 6 months. We can't even reach you. Matter of fact, we have over 1,000 cases, files that are ready for production, but there are small issues like we need to contact the owners, but we can't. And like I said, in Benin alone, we have 24,000 produced passports that have not been collected because we can't reach the owners.
Okay.
Let's bring in Dr. Karim Olajuku, who is the Technical Advisor, Innovation and Strategy to the Minister of Interior. The Minister of Interior has been talking about reforms in the passport policy and all that. And, you know, Nigerians are one of the most traveled people across the world. There's no country you go to where you do not see in Nigeria. Why is the process so cumbersome? And as the Minister is saying, before the end of his tenure, what are we going to see?
Thank you very much for having me. And for us in the Ministry of Interior, we set out in this passport initiative because we noticed the embarrassment it was causing for the nation. Because in the process of passport, there was a lot of touting. We decided, how do we reduce the touting? How do we conform to global best practice? And then we said, because in the past, people just walk into office and said, I need a passport. There was no formal process from your home. And now that technology is taking over, we decided to have a portal. You go online, make application, you pay online. And before, there's a lot of leakage of revenue from government. You just pay to somebody, you have no receipt. But now you go online, you make application, you pay online, then you book an appointment. Before, there was no appointment. You walk in, and the reason for that appointment was because we said there will be a 3 weeks and 6 weeks timeline. 3 weeks for reissue, 6 weeks for fresh application. And the reason for this timeline is because of vetting. We want to know who you are. We want to do a background check on who is getting Nigerian passport. Because that is the integrity of the passport. Because the passport is the highest level of document an individual can have. So we must be sure that you are a Nigerian. So that's why that timeline is in place. And of course, with every reform, there will be kickbacks. There will be people that won't conform with the reforms. And that's what we've been seeing. And oftentimes, as he said, there's a lot of passports that have been produced that are not collected. Why? Because people fill the wrong phone numbers, the wrong email address. So when we message you or text you to come and collect your passport, the messages bounce back because they are wrong phone numbers. So this enlightenment campaign is for us, for Nigerians, to buy into the system, because this system is an effective system and it conforms to global best practice. And we believe that from your home, you can pick up your phone, go to the portal and apply seamlessly. There's no ambiguity. There's nobody that will interrupt the process. But people must also believe in the online process. A lot of people don't believe in the online process. They will still rather go and walk in and pay a tout, and that's oftentimes results in people not getting their passport on time.
Okay, that's quite interesting, Dr. Olajuku. And I will come back to you because both of you have touched on very fundamental documentation errors, which has led to at least a large number of uncollected, passports, people's passports lying out there. There must be a way of getting across to, these holders, so that they get hold of their passports. Your Excellency, we'll get back to you because I'm told that you undertook some reforms in immigration matters. But I'd like to bring in Dr. Hamiso here. Dr. Does the challenges, the challenges that we have enumerated, do they resonate with you in one way or the other?
Well, as my brother pointed out, there are no reforms that will not produce some level of challenges in reforms. The first thing is...
Have you had an experience?
Yes, I've had an experience. Maybe let me start with that experience.
Yes.
In 2011, I was in China. And as soon as we touched down at the airport, we were to be screened before were allowed to live. And it was surprising to me by then, because I never knew the magnitude of crimes that Nigerians were committing in China. Persons from war-torn countries in Africa were asked to go. They will come from Eritrea. You know, they were fighting war in Eritrea. They will ask them to go. South Sudan, they will ask them to go. Guess who are being kept? Nigerians. And they have more than 150 names in their system that they are running our passport against to search if those of us that are coming in will match the database of those that have committed crimes that they are waiting for. That took us a lot of time.
And this is passport theft?
Yes, because it's crime that has to do with Nigerian nationals, and the only information they have about those Nigerian nationals are those that are contained in their passport or their international traveling document. So you are embarrassed as a Nigerian that if you go out there, it will take 5 minutes to search a Kenyan, for instance. It will take more than 20 minutes as a Nigerian. Don't forget the fact that Nigeria was even being used as a transit route for drugs, for trafficking, in a host of other crimes that are frowned at internationally. So you come to realize that even as a Nigerian, you're not even proud of your international passport, because your international passport is an embarrassment to you. Anybody can use it because of the system was not programmed to check identity theft or fraud.
Here in Nigeria.
Here in Nigeria, elsewhere even. So other countries, because of the rigorous nature of their system, it takes little or no time to vet them and they are allowed to go. So if, as a Nigerian, at any time you can be singled out of, say, 100 persons, 200, 500 that are about to board, and then they ask you to come out, that is embarrassing enough. Nobody will want to hold that kind of a passport. This was my experience in China. It was after that I started questioning the rationale behind the treatment that we got, because we were many from Nigeria and they were asked to stay aside. And these guys from other African countries that, okay, they are fighting wars that you think maybe they are running guns or something, or they were asked to go. I was embarrassed. I was scandalized as a Nigerian. So now the challenges are this.
Yes.
I don't have any problem with challenges that are thrown up when there are reforms. But when those challenges becomes incentive for others to make money or to abuse the process further, then I have a problem.
You know what I'm going to ask you?
Yes.
I'm going to ask you, because I know you have an international Nigerian passport.
Yes.
Between the time you obtained your passport and what is happening now,
yes,
how seamless was it for you to get your passport?
Then.
And how would you evaluate the process now?
Yeah, I will come to the evaluation. I think that is what I'm driving at. Every reform is always very difficult because there will be issues. But the only thing is, the people that are driving the reforms, are they ready to go extra miles to work on those challenges that are coming up so that those challenges don't equally block the reforms? And that is the point he has made. We are calling on people that have problems to go back to NIN, that is National Identification Management
Agency. It is a cumbersome process.
Yes,
again.
Go back there. You see, globally, there is what is called data integration. Your data on your international passport must match with the data on your birth certificate, must match with the information you supply even when you enter school, so that you can, because if you go to court, your bank account, and I think this is what the system is doing, because we'll be crying that we are having duplication of data. For instance, there are documents that I fill. I don't know the implication. I saw Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu. Fine. I don't have a problem with that. Nobody has questioned me over that. I go to open bank account, Hamisu Abu Abdurrahman. Legally, if they take me to court, I will say I am not. My name is Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu. Where you got your own Hamisu Abu Abdurrahman is your problem.
Yeah.
And that is why internationally, all your data must match wherever it is required. So that if you commit identity theft or fraud, it is easily dictated. But when you have duplication of data, as I already pointed out. In my bank account is Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu. On my national identity card is Hamisu Abu Abdurrahman. In my birth certificate is Abu Abdurrahman Hamisu. How many personalities are we talking about?
Yeah. That's quite, you know, the reforms have their challenges indeed, and the passport is not just a travel document, it is an identity.
Yes.
A confirmation of citizenship of a country.
Yes.
Let's bring in Ambassador Ahmed here. You've made some reforms where you've worked as ambassador before. Did you have any challenges? And if these reforms were successful, what did you do to, you know, transmit it to the immigration service in Nigeria, you know, so that it can help them in the reforms they are trying to initiate now?
Well, thank you very much. I have now the benefit of speaking within and outside the service.
Yes.
And I will focus mainly now on London, which is a very big mission with many Nigerians. So when we arrived under the stewardship of my boss, Dr. Dalhaj Susarki Tafida, we discovered the major challenge we have in the mission is the issue of passports and other consular services. So fortunately, we had a group of very good officers who had integrity. So we sat down, he formed a committee. I was like coordinating it. And we discovered that to give a better service to Nigerians, we have to overhaul the whole system within the mission. But of course, in conjunction with the immigration officers, since statutorily it's their responsibility to do that. But at the same time, diplomatically, the head of mission, so to say, is the overall boss there, and he can take whatever decision he wants. And then we also discovered that we had to carry along Nigerians, both young, the eldest and the rest of it. And in fact, we also had to carry along even the British government. They had to understand what we are going through. So we sat down after about two months, came up with a document after all due consultations, and we looked at the problems and how best we could have it better. We had to even retrain the staff. The orientation had to change. But I remember we had to send one immigration officer back home because he was found wanting. He had compromised himself. And so many other local staff had to be removed from the section. And there are some of them who had integrity issues. So we kept them away from anything to do with the issue of passports. Of course, we had to also carry the press around. And at the end of it, we had a very successful exercise. And that also helped to make the system efficient. But also, we are getting more money even for the government. And we inform Nigerians that, look, what you are paying for passport doesn't come to us. Now, we had a lot of challenges. We had a lot of pressure on us. We had to recruit more staff. We had to provide infrastructure. There are some abandoned spaces within the mission that we had to revamp, you know, create facilities that, you know, made things easier. We had to, even ICT, we had to buy more computers, more software and the rest of it. So at the end of the day, it was a win-win situation. And immigration headquarters came on board and really helped us. There was not just question or you don't have the right to do this or I have the right to do. No, we work together as a team. But what I'm seeing now, recently, what is happening is not proper. We just, immigration say, no, territoriality. You don't have a right in the mission to say you have done this. No, the head of mission there represents the president of Nigeria. He has the authority of the president. Of course, when he does things, he needs to inform immigration headquarters so that this synergy, you know, is created. But I can tell you that we had a very successful mission. And when I found myself in Saudi Arabia, I took these things with me, and I did the same reform, which of course was very, very difficult. Because of the
huge numbers of people without passport who have been there to stay for years.
Yeah. So what do you, from your experience,
yes,
and the outcome of the reforms you initiated, can you point to the main issue with us here? Is it more of orientation or political will or lack of maybe infrastructure, technology or something?
Two things, attitudinal and corruption. The attitude has to change from everyone within the system. The officers, the leaders have to understand that issue of passport is not a money-making thing for me. But think of the services that you are obliged to give to Nigerians. then people have to understand there are processes to follow, and you don't need to go through touts. When I was in Saudi Arabia, people outside were collecting maybe thrice the amount of money normally they would have paid, but they were more comfortable to go that way than to come to the mission. So it was a real war between the mission and these people.
The war is still there because when we went for Hajj, they had problems of people coming.
It has always been there, but when we came, it was not easy. We have wanted to create the order we had in London, but people in Saudi Arabia were not used to that. You know, it was blames here and there, but I knew what I was doing was the right thing to do. At the end of the day, they were reaping the benefits. Yeah.
That's great. Let's now bring in the Director, Consular and Legal Affairs, Ministry of Foreign Affairs in New York, is Ambassador Nicholas Ella. You've been listening to the conversation and contribution of our guests on the topic. What is the situation in the U.S. as we know that a lot of Nigerians are out there and some might not even have passports because the passport have expired, and also what kind of problems are you having? What kind of challenges are you having, you know, based on these reforms by the immigration?
Thank you. Thank you, please. It's a great pleasure having me. Yeah, many of our compatriots are still worried that passport booklets are not available as and when needed by them. I think that is the major problem. And what we must do is to make sure that we put all efforts to ensure that passports are produced and made available to all our missions for issuance to Nigeria at all times. Already, colleagues at the studio have already spoken about the challenges faced by our compatriots. Some are personal, caused by themselves, that they do not apply on time. We have made this a point that before 6 months to the expiration of passports, an individual should be able to apply for his passport. This is fundamental. It's a global practice, and we cannot shy away from that. If we apply on time, I think this issue of non-availability of passport before travel time will be addressed. The new system, the system put in place to fast-track services at this moment, of course, is quite temporary. We do not expect that this should be a norm for us, that Nigerians will be asked to come home with expired passports. I think it's a little bit off the cuff. We should allow Nigerians to ensure that they have their passports and travel with their current passports, and not to encourage them to come along with their foreign passports. I think that is what we should be doing at the moment. But the missions are committed to render effective and efficient service delivery to all Nigerians in the diaspora, and they are working on that. I think that is a very encouraging thing. I do not see much of the challenges coming again, because the issue of appointments have been taken care of. What we do have challenges about is delivery of the passport as and when needed. That is, if you give an applicant 3 weeks to come and pick up his passport, then the passport will be available for him to pick up. I think those are the challenges some of our compatriots are facing at the moment.
You also mentioned availability of booklets as another issue in addition to delivery of the passport. So again, we return to DCI Akuneme. So how long does it take? I know you have told us, I mean, originally or ordinarily, between 3 and 6 weeks, right, if you are reissuing and if you are a fresh applicant.
6 months.
What is the What is the process as at now? And the ambassador also talked about availability of booklets. Is that the case?
Well, the only thing I can remember is that in the last 1.5 years, there were backlogs. This backlog was occasioned by the pandemic. In 2019, between 2019 and 2020, we issued less than 1 million booklets, about between 500 and 750,000 booklets were needed, and they were available. Now, in between 2020 and 2021, there was COVID. up to maybe early 2021. So you won't believe that between 2021 and 2022, or between January and December, we've had to issue close to 2 million passports. Now compare that with 750,000 before COVID. You would believe that what it means is that the great number of Nigerians, both at home and abroad, who couldn't have access to the services for one whole year and probably a half, are now all like tipped over to 2022. And so in that kind of situation, even if you have all the booklets in the world, you still needed time and human capacity to deliver them, to get them issued. And remember the other technical hitches that people don't know about, that I'm telling you, that could also slow down the process. No matter how nice, no matter how many booklets you have, if the NIN is not corresponding, you can't issue. So what I'm trying to say is that, yes, we had issues of backlog, but right now, it's cleared. And as we speak, we have like 80,000 booklets available just for even diasporans coming back for the Yuletide. And we've all assured them they can get their passports within 2 weeks. And it started. The process is on already.
Someone said the production process itself can even take as long as 6 months.
Yes, if you have issues, because it's at the point of production that the issues are discovered. Not when you come and take your fingerprints and go. You think everything is okay. It is at the point of production that the due diligence, the quality assurance, the activation, there's a whole lot of process that goes on in the production cycle.
What about an applicant who doesn't have any of these documentation errors? Because we have one of our staff, has applied for renewal, and this is about several months.
That's what I'm saying.
About 4 or 5 months now, and he doesn't seem to have any documentation error according to him.
Send him to me.
Why is it taking 6 months to produce a passport for somebody?
Yeah, because you have
when initially it was a day or two. Why is it taking 6 months?
No, a day or two was when there was no appointment system. People could just walk in, pay, and get their passports done. The appointment system slowed down the process, and it is global practice. It is meant to slow down, to do background checks. Those things weren't seen before. I mean, if you come in and get a passport, and then when the person leaves, you find out that this is a terrorist or a criminal or a drug pusher. So those things, the system has deliberately slowed down the process, so we have enough time to do due diligence and background checks on every applicant. 6 months, as far as I'm concerned, the person has an issue. So I would like to have the person referred to my office to deal with it. I've had a couple of complaints, and then you find out that, oh, even my younger sister didn't know that the date of birth on her NIN wasn't her date of birth.
Yes.
She didn't know.
I think Jume has
I have the same. Yes. No, mine isn't the NIN.
Okay,
all my other documents are the same. It is the immigration office that had made that mistake.
Oh,
because
really?
when I went to get renew my passport, that was in Maiduguri. You know, I noticed I was in a hurry. I wanted to travel actually, and when I received it and I saw that the date is different from my what I have on my birth certificate. So it was the problem not from NIN, because there was no NIN then, not from NIN, but from the passport offices, from the passport office itself.
Well, you'll be shocked to know that it is still your fault, because everybody has a chance to double check what is in the system before you leave. We insist that officers ask you to sign. This data is okay by me. Like you said, you are in a hurry to leave.
And that's one of the reforms.
Yes.
That's one of the reforms.
Yes. To more those reforms, because I see you're holding a copy of the passport.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the basic thing, like we said, the basic reform is the online queuing system, and is hectic in places like Lagos, like I said, because now in Lagos, if you pay for passport today, the system gives you options of February. You can't get anything January date. February ending in Lagos. In Abuja, it's January ending. But in Owerri, it's next week.
In Nasarawa, it's
next week. You could get next day appointments in these places. So Nigerians should go back to their homes when they go for holidays and get their passports. Leave Lagos, leave Abuja.
I'm going to ask you one fundamental question.
Yes, ma'am.
There have been issue of non-Nigerians getting Nigerian passports, traveling abroad, committing a lot of crimes, and they say they are Nigerians. So how are you going to curb that now? to ensure that only Nigerians get Nigerian passport and not somebody coming from Ghana or Niger or Cameroon to come to Nigeria, get a passport and travel and commit crimes? Because most of these crimes, sometimes, it's not committed by Nigerians. We've seen stories happening that the people are not Nigerians. Dr. Karim,
so,
can you...
Let's differentiate. We have an enhanced passport, we have an e-passport.
Yes.
So the enhanced passport is the more improved version of the e-passport. So before, you can go to Lagos, get a passport, then go to Nasarawa, get another passport.
You can have 2 passports?
Before.
Okay.
So the reform was that your fingerprint should be one. If you get a passport in Nasarawa and you go to Lagos, we will detect you at production. So we now have the more enhanced passport, which is difficult to forge or to violate the rules. So now, today, if you go to Lagos and you do a biometrics, and you say, oh, there's a delay, you can't get your passport, it's 3 weeks, I need it today. You want to Nasarawa, don't do that biometrics. Your passport will lock.
It will lock automatically.
And you must now face a panel.
You'll be summoned.
You'll be summoned. So that way they will say, oh, my passport has taken 7 months, 1 year. They will not tell you the truth why their passport is locked. And that speaks to Nigeria as a whole. We must be committed to the process. The Minister of Interior was the chairman to harmonize all our data. So from BVN to NIN and driver's license. And we chose NIN as a unifier. And that unifier is the source. So if the source is correct and all that is not correct, it won't pass through. So this is some of the key reforms. And also planning is also very important. As you said you need a passport in 24 hours. It's not possible, man. The reason is because we can't verify in 24 hours. We don't know who you are. Even if it's a renewal, we need to in terms of the system. The system does not know who you are. You need to verify that you are truly Nigerian. That the first passport you obtain, you need to obtain it fraudulently. And those are one of the key areas that is needed. Because as you said earlier, Dr. Amisu, in terms of Nigerians being victimized abroad, we have a report from the American government in terms of how our passport is being gotten illegally, and that's why we ensure that we must drive a reform so that our passports can be our pride. Right. And whenever we go abroad with our passport, we are rest assured that that passport is authentic and is not duplicated.
Okay, I want to stay with you. And I must also, from my personal experience, commend the digitization of the passport, the e-passport. It makes it seamless. You're able to make your pay online and, of course, make your bookings for biometric capture. But do you actually think that it has served the purpose of eliminating middleman, racketeering, and extortion? Corruption.
So in terms of payment, your passport can be produced if you don't pay online. So if you like pay a middleman, pay a tout, the middleman will still have to go and pay through the right channel, because without the payment reference number, it cannot be produced. So that way we've eliminated leakage in terms of government revenue. Yes, the middleman can charge you exorbitant amount for passport, but in terms of the statutory fee for a passport going into the government account, it's a no-brainer. We don't accept cash for passport. You must pay online, and that's the only way we have used to ensure that that leakage of government revenue has been blocked.
The essence of that was to, check extortion, corrupt practices. But as we all are aware, our correspondent who covers the service did an investigative report, an expose, and it was alarming at what is going on the ground. I don't know if DCI Akoneme would want to respond to that. Have you been able to address the issues that have been raised in that report? I'm sure you watched it.
Yeah, well, the Controller General of Immigration, Mr. Issa Idris Mefar, is wholly committed to driving this process to the end. He has set up a task force. I mean, we can't pretend there are no bad eggs, because there are bad eggs everywhere. And what we're trying to do now is to set example with scapegoats. And I'm sure the person that made that report also covered the report where we brought two people, 2 Nigerians, one an immigration officer, and the Nigerian who gave the bribe. Because it's not just about receiving. You are equally guilty to try to offer bribe to an officer. So, but when we catch those people, We put them through orderly room trials if they are junior officers. If they are senior officers, we'll send them to the board, because the Immigration and Correctional Service Board is responsible for disciplining senior officers. So as we speak, there are ongoing disciplinary cases, hundreds of them, but the process is slow, and everybody wants to be careful. You can't just dismiss somebody and he goes to court, and the court says you dismissed him wrongly, and you pay charges, and he comes back. But so when people see those who commit crimes or who run foul of the system still walking around, they don't know they are still being investigated. Maybe their salaries have been stopped, or they're on suspension and all that. So what I'm trying to say is that the Controller General is committed to reforming even the officers. There's a lot of training going on as we speak. 2 of our officers are in Turkey undergoing Servicom training, and then all other forms of training that are in, and then to make officers alive to the current trends and the issues of corruption. He's not taking it lightly at all. There are systems in place to discipline erring officers.
He mentioned, your Comptroller General mentioned, a list of key priorities to an effective, passport system. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Key priorities?
Yes, key priorities.
An effective passport system.
Yes,
the first, as far as I'm concerned, is sensitization. Because half of the challenges we have would naturally ease off if Nigerians knew, first of all, like they said, that you can go online and get your passport. The average Nigerian still thinks it's not possible. So we have a role. I mean, the media has a role to help inform Nigerians. Let them even try. Because there's no point wanting, like the ambassador said, to just go and pay somebody to get the service done, as if that's the only option. A lot of Nigerians...
Media has a role. But according to the reports that our investigative report that Victor Azu did, there was a lot of bottlenecks when you couldn't get information. That led to doing that report, and I think it gingered this conversation. It's a drive for this conversation.
Yeah.
Do you have an open policy with journalists in your office to give them the right information when they need it?
I am a trained journalist of over 20 years experience. And why else would I be recalled? I was serving my governor in Imo State. I was on secondment as a special advisor to the governor on information. But probably because this reform is very passionate, and the Controller General has it at his heart, that's why I was recalled to head the public enlightenment campaign. So we're taking it very seriously, and I think with your help, we will make the desired impact in the next coming weeks.
Okay, let me bring in Dr. Hamisu. Dr. Hamisu, Ambassador Ella talked about the issue of booklets. And I think a few years ago, there were plans to domesticate the printing of, the passport booklet here.
Yes.
As at now, I don't know what the status is. I don't think that has been done. Do you see that as a clog?
Of course, yes. I made a point earlier on. It is not about reform. It's about the will to drive the process from the beginning to the end. In between, addressing challenges. So reform is a cyclical thing. It's a never-ending scenario. You continue to go over and over again, making sure that everything...
It's evolving.
It's evolving. So what we want to see is, okay, just the way you mentioned, there was investigation. The investigation threw up a lot of challenges. Is the service willing to accept that, okay, these are challenges and that we need to tackle them? If yes, then we are moving to that desired end. Now, Ambassador said something which is very critical, and that is the bane of our reforms in Nigeria. The most fundamental is corruption. And that has defined our attitude to issues. So I can walk into immigration office, and then if it will take 100,000, I can give 500,000 to get what I want in the next 24 hours. But if you realize that there is a system in place, and that this system will constrain you till 6 weeks, and you've given 500,000 to 10 persons, no result, that will discipline you. But if the system is compromised, then everything goes. And everybody will have this mindset that, okay, because that is how we are. We will want to beat the system until it is impossible. It's the same thing, for instance, like the electoral reforms. People thought it was a joke until the politicians could not penetrate INEC So what they resort to doing? Vote buying. So they keep money to buy vote. They are not thinking of going to INEC. Previously is who has contact in INEC. But because of the reforms, they've resorted to raw vote buying in broad daylight. So reform has a way of disciplining people. And we have this penchant to complain. I have a friend, he's always lamenting about Nigeria. Now he's in UK. And he said it took him 10 days to book an appointment to see a doctor. And I said, you've been insulting Nigeria that Nigeria is not working. But in Nigeria, you've never said it takes you 10 hours to book an appointment with a doctor. And you tell me that system is more efficient to Nigeria if you're in a coma and they say you have to wait till. So if you know you are ill, you book earlier. That is the situation. We must begin to discipline ourselves. Now, like the issue of the jacket that we're talking about is about vested interest. It's about vested interest. There are young Nigerians. Look at what my brother is saying. As somebody who is vast in strategy and innovation,
you have the part, but that's
if he brings any proposal, for the fact that the proposal is coming from within Nigeria, that is the more reason they will not accept it.
But do we have the capacity?
We have the capacity. We have the capacity. We have the technology.
We did a study.
Honestly,
we did a study on the material of passports.
Yes.
I realized that the chip.
Yes.
Because the chip has to be on a cow. A cow
specification.
Is a body that relates to that body. The chip, the thread, the paper. It's not just any kind of paper. Those are unique papers that even globally there's a source that you go to for those kind of equipment. American, British, they all go to the same source. And we realized that. Sorry?
Where is the source located?
I think I don't have that off my hand, but I can tell you if I go through my phone. So there's a source that they goes for that chip. Yeah. Because the chip is like a centralized chip, so that when you travel, they can be able to read your document. When any border point, just swipe your passport. They see your information. They see the same person. They allow you go in. So that way they know it's you. But in terms of domestication, the process is ongoing. But the domestication will largely be an assembly plant. It won't be largely a manufacturer in terms of producing the paper and all that. Because in Nigeria, even the worst of paper, newspaper, we don't produce in Nigeria. So in terms of having the capacity in the raw materials for a passport, we don't have it. But in terms of setting up a machinery in the NIS in the next few months, where the president will come and launch the groundbreaking ceremony of the passport as a plant. It will happen, but the plant will largely be an assembly plant. It won't be a large production plant.
How do we print our currency?
It also has a chip.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We can bring the printing and meeting people on seats. We have knowledge that it's not totally printed in Nigeria.
Okay.
Sorry. Please go ahead.
You see,
go ahead.
In terms of STEM engineering, the Cubans went to USSR then to learn. Today they are the best. If we're patriotic enough, you see, like when this ICT technology came, people thought nobody could do anything. We have to import this, we have to import that. Let me shock you. There is a project we are working on now. It's a software that's supposed to integrate some government agencies. Is a young man from Kano that is doing it. This young man was invited to come and build fintech in Malaysia. And he went there and spent a month in Malaysia. Imagine somebody from remote Kano, so to say. Because we're import-oriented country, and this importation is really adding value to some persons, irrespective of the amount and the impact it's making on us. And so it has given us this psyche that we can't do anything on our own. For instance, the reform ambassador talked about. So if it were to be a typical Nigeria, they will hire a consultant from UK. And then they will give this consultant all the information. The consultant will put it on Excel and add color to it and come and present your own ideas to you. And then this consultant is paid. And then you clap for the consultant. Whereas
all
the
about
ideas,
political will.
Yes, you see, the will is there. The will to do the wrong thing is a will. It's a will.
The will
to do the wrong things.
I'm hearing that for the first time, actually.
So the same will it requires to do the right things.
Let's
it's the same will we take to do. In fact, it takes more energy to do the wrong things.
Do you want to bring in His Excellency? What's your opinion about this? Yes. Capacity and will.
Let me take up on what the doctor said. It embarrasses me to hear that we cannot do something. If an impoverished country that doesn't match anything that we have can do its own, why can't Nigeria do it? I cannot buy that argument. I cannot. Why should there be passport scarcity in the first place? After all, you pay for it. You pay for it. It doesn't come free. And people are willing to pay. So why should there be scarcity? Why? When Nigeria has the resources, abundant resources.
And the raw materials.
And we have everything, virtually everything. We have seen it. Now, even if you go back to the history of how this passport came about, the contact and the rest of it, it's mind-boggling. It shouldn't have been the case. Other small countries that I don't want to use the word and don't add to anything, they are doing it well. And their system has integrity. Why can't we have the same thing in Nigeria?
Some will say the population is different. Nigeria is overpopulated at least.
But we are also more blessed than most of these countries, by every standard. So they should be copying from us. Go to America. Getting a passport is no big deal. Just walk into a post office.
And then they will send it to you by post.
And they will post it to you. It's not a big deal. But yeah, it's so much a big deal. And now you have cut off one segment of the culprits. Now even the officials are the ones involved. Go to immigration office. You pay all this that they are saying. It is true. I have to give it to them that they have done their best to bring integrity into it. But then now you have this crop of officials within the system who are even abating these corrupt tendencies. And they do not want to allow it to work.
You've raised some pertinent questions that need to be addressed when we come back from this break. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children. Protect them from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NOAA.
Everywhere you go, from banks to hospitals to public offices, mass transit stations, airports, and even telecommunication centers, senior citizens are treated as nuisances. They are not. They are senior members of our society, and they deserve the utmost respect. We shouldn't be having our aged fathers and mothers standing in long queues to withdraw their monies at banks. Our retired senior citizens shouldn't be caught standing in buses for lack of seats or chasing after one just to get to their destination. Senior citizens shouldn't have to sit long hours in hospital corridors with no geriatric specialist to attend to them. Our senior citizens deserve better treatment from all of us. They deserve to be listened to. They are deserving of seat reservations on public buses and priority attendance in public spaces. As young people, we are quick to say, no one owes you. This is not true. We owe the elderly members of our society a helping hand, our services, and respect. Age-friendly societies have more senior citizens enjoying good health, living safely, and engaging in meaningful community work than those who do not. Dignifying age-friendly services for senior citizens.
The security situation in Nigeria has been reasonably stable in spite of activities of unpatriotic elements engaged in various criminal activities around the country. Daily situation reports coming in from states. 2 months ago, it has shown relative peace on many of our highways, such as Abuja, Kaduna Birnin Gwari, Sokoto, Zamfara, Kaduna.
This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
What we face mostly now are flashes of cowardly attacks from the rump of groups that have been routed in one location or the other, moving to another to give the false impression that they are still strong. Our ultimate goal is to eliminate them altogether and restore total and lasting peace over every inch of the Nigerian soil. Sounding tall, but take it home. We are determined to ensure that every inch of the Nigerian soil is safe. That determination is there. The order has been given. But we shall continue to protect the lives and property of Nigerians and foreigners in our midst. We shall continue to work for the peace of the nation and deter elements that constitute threats to the people. We shall bear the full powers of the government to secure every inch of our land. We shall not rest until peace is fully restored to Nigeria.
This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, welcome back to the program. It's Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service. And our conversation, of course, is on the passport reforms and challenges. It's been quite engaging and interesting conversation. So I'd like to return to Ambassador Nicholas Ella, who's joining us via Zoom from New York in the US. Ambassador Ella, thank you once again for joining us. It appeared that we lost you at some point. We've been discussing the issue of booklet production, and if we can explore local production of it right here in the country. And some of the guests, specifically Dr. Karim, who is the technical advisor, is saying at best what we can do is assembly plants. But even if we do that, that will go a long way in sparing us some forex, isn't it?
That's very true. Thank you so much. I think we should, in all honesty, explore local production as much as possible. And as a foreign ministry, we can also help. We have seen in many countries where productions are taking place. It's not cast in stone. We can do the same. It's just a question of coming together, entering into an MOU and understanding with any of these companies, and they can produce in Nigeria. I think to me, that is the starting point. Let's get one or two companies that will say, okay, let us produce this thing in your country at certain terms and conditions. Following also this submission, I want to also address an issue, which is the issue of distribution of passports. When I joined the service in 1993, and Ambassador Ahmed, my senior colleague here, will also attest to this fact, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs had an elaborate process and system for the distribution of passports to all missions. We had courier services that can send passport to any missions as and when necessary. I think the NIS should be able to synergize with the ministry to explore this process so that we have a small quantity of passports available at every time at the ministry, and those ones can be sent to missions that do need such passport as quickly as possible.
I would like for you to sort of talk about Nigerians in diaspora, especially in the US, and I'm sure you have a huge number there of Nigerians, and it's the season to come home. What kind of pressure are you having from Nigerians, you know, whose passport have expired? Even if they said you can come back to Nigeria with an expired passport, but if you come back to Nigeria with an expired passport, how do you go back if you just have a holiday for 2 weeks? What kind of pressure are you having over there?
Okay, thank you so much. Though I'm not at a mission again, I'm here on holidays there, but I also serve at the Nigerian High Consulate from 2017 to 2021. So I'll be able to guess the challenge we've been facing in past are still what are prevalent at the moment. And that is, yes, all Nigerians can travel with their expired passport. But what we have done and what we keep encouraging is that if there is the need to issue emergency traveling certificate, let that be done timely and on the same day of application. Arriving here 3 days back, I had a family who want to go to Nigeria, and I sent them to the consulate. Please go, meet the officers there, and let that passport be issued, because the family want to travel, but the little child among them does not have a Nigerian passport. So, and they cannot leave the child alone. So he has to go with an ETC. That is about a 7-month or 8-month child that has to accompany their family home. So that is an issue that we have all encouraged our missions to do. Issue emergency traveling certificates without restrictions. As much as possible, do that for any Nigerian that is going, that shows proof of previous passport, whether expired or is being processed. You know, because again, like we said, information has to be passed around. Not all the airlines do know that we have these fast-track services for Nigerians to allowing them to come home with their expired passport. Airlines are still holding on to their policy that you have to come with a passport. Again, you talk about how do they return. Majority of Nigerians in the United States here do have their U.S. passport, and they return back with the U.S. passport. So there's no problem about how they come back. Or what they have problem with is how do they go home during this period. I think that is a major challenge we have.
Okay, thank you, Ambassador Nicholas Ella.
Yes, okay. Yes, so Ambassador Ella, thank you. We'll return to you in a moment. Let's come back again to DCI. He talked about airline policies and how to synchronize that with your new policy, allowing Nigerians in diaspora to return home even with expired passports. And for children, you know, who don't have passports, any provisions for them?
Well,
who were born there, who don't have passports.
If you were born there, and for instance, that means you're an American child, if you don't have a passport, you're not yet a Nigerian child. So you come with a visa. And there's a provision for visas on arrival, just to make it seamless as well, to make it easy for them. So they can get authority to board from here. If they go to online, it's still in this website, and then they can apply for the authority to board, and then when they get to the airport here, they are issued visas. It's working, and a lot of them are applying for it. All we need is just to tell them that this is possible. But then again, Christmas is a 12-month thing. So it still boils down to the same Nigerian mentality wherever they are.
Fire brigade approach.
Why do they have to wait until December to begin to look for passports?
Yes, you see, let's not dwell on why we've already identified it's a mentality. There's need for reorientation. Yes, but now that you have come up with this measure, you know, a solution, because of the challenges you also had, you know, in meeting up with the requirement. Yes. So how are you synergizing with airlines, you know, whose policies are that you must produce, you know, a valid document? Yes.
Well, basically, that provision is not for all classes of Nigerians. It's only for Nigerians who have dual citizenships, which means you must have another passport, the passport of the host country where you reside. So you can't have two expired passports. So if you have the same passport with the same identity, but your US passport is valid, your Nigerian passport is not valid, and you're coming to Nigeria. Common sense, what the embassy, the airline needs to know is that you are a Nigerian. but your passport is expired, but your American passport is valid. And Nigerian government, by the kind courtesy of the Minister of Interior and the Controller General, have decided, it's a federal government policy, to allow citizens to come home as long as they have a second passport, to come home and get your passport reissued here. So what we've done in the interim is to write to major airlines and embassies so that they are aware. We've done that through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Actually, the letter was sent to the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs because they have the mandate to communicate with the embassies. And they've done that.
Okay.
So all we need is to create more awareness so that people will know that this is happening. And like I said, we also have instituted a fast track at the airports here for Nigerians returning for this season because they are quite in their numbers with their families. And then again, what we realize...
Do you have numbers?
Yeah, of course. Like this thing started just a week ago. And in Lagos, over 150 families have already documented, because what we did is...
They've arrived in Nigeria.
They've arrived.
Christmas.
What we did is to put banners at the arrival halls of all the airports, all the 5 airports, the international arrival points, even in Kano, Port Harcourt, Enugu, Lagos, and Abuja. We have banners, we have desks, and desk officers carrying banners like "Ask me." If you are if
you have a problem.
Yes, if you ask me, if you're a diasporan coming back and you want your passport reissued in 2 weeks, come to this table. And people are registering. In the MMA, I mean, in the Nnamdi Azikiwe airport here, we have had about 30 families register, because there's a desk diary, you register, and we ask you, where are you heading to? So it's done in such a way that all the passport officers in the 36 states are aware, and they formed their own desk officers, diaspora desk officers in all the 36 states, plus FCT, so that if in the form we made, you indicate, I'm going to Anambra, the controller of the airport will endorse to the passport officer in Anambra, kindly treat.
So you can receive your passport from Anambra?
Yes, anywhere. The whole 36 states have booklets to issue. The only people that have to come to Abuja for any reason is people who are changing data on their passport. And not for marriage anyway. If it's for marriage, you can get it in anywhere of the 36 states. But if it is like coming to say that, oh, I was born in January before, now I'm born in February, you have to come to Abuja. We need to interrogate.
Let me ask you, because, sorry, because we're almost winding down. What should happen if you are a passport applicant? What should happen when you get to the capturing center, your offices, where you go for your biometric? What should happen? And if you observe any irregularity, any malpractice, what should the applicant do? That's one of my questions. And the second one is, you also instituted the tracking mechanism, how to track. There have been complaints about that tracker, and I'm sure Dr. Karim will speak to that.
Well, if I understand the first question properly, what should happen at the point of biometrics?
Yes.
If what happens? If you
have to go for your biometric card, what should happen?
Well, basically, you would have already applied online,
yes,
and gotten an appointment date,
yes,
and that date is synced in our system. So when you show up and they collect your appointment paper, document you, open a file for you, make sure all your other documents are with you, like your birth certificate, if it's the first time, your letter of introduction from your local government, if it's the first time, but your NIN, whether it's the first time or a reissue. When all those things are complete, a file is opened for you, a number is given to you, then you take your turn and go for, the people are being called, ushered into the biometrics room. And then when you get there, the information is already in our system, basically. So it's just to upload it, type in your reference number and ID number, and upload your system, and then you position yourself for the photograph. At that point, it is not possible for the biometrics officer, because of the crowd, to start to check or to ask you, is this your phone number? Is this your email address? He assumes it's correct. And so you take your picture and go. And then he submits online, like saves. And then he goes to the next processing chains. And then it's at the point of quality assurance, production, confirmation, that they find out that, for instance, the email is not the same. If there's any issue, if the NIN has issues, it's usually the NIN that we sync with. And so if there's any issue in NIN and we need to reach you to come, try to change. First of all, we'll ask you, do you prefer the name on the NIN, the arrangement, or the one on the passport application? Because a lot of times people will come and say, oh, I prefer this. If you prefer the one on the NIN, then go change it so that it will match with what you applied for.
Okay, let's quickly so that we can take some more questions.
Yes, take some more questions. Let me bring you in. The ministers talked about using ICT. We're moving away from the airports now to the land borders, where because of insecurity, influx of criminally minded foreigners are coming in. The minister talked about, you know, using innovation and ICT at the borders so that they can ensure that people don't come into Nigeria illegally. When is it going to kick off?
So I think in September of 2019, we launched the MIDAS, which is the Migration Data Management System, where at every entry point in Nigeria, land border, sea border, air border, your fingerprints are taken and is run against Interpol to see if you are a wanted suspect or what have you. Then if you are not, you are being cleared. And the MIDAS has been installed across the land borders. All the airports have been installed already. Sea has been installed. But the land borders, we've done, I think we've done Ilela border, we've done Cotonou, Benin Republic border, and other borders are being progressed in trenches. So I think that would solve in terms of knowing who is going out and who is coming in at the border points. Yes. And it's powered by IOM.
Okay, by IOM.
Yes.
I'm still going to DCI. Let's talk about penalties here. You've talked about, you know, arresting officers who have connived with civilians to, you know, shortchange the system itself. Have there been any penalties or prosecution?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, just last month, about 8 officers were dismissed, and it was in the news. In the airport, because this corruption is not just only in passports, and it's not only passport that immigration does. At the airports, the Controller General had to withdraw a whole set of officers on duty because there was complaint about extortion. About 88 officers were summoned to Abuja to come and face disciplinary panel. And then if we find out that you are not guilty, you go back. And those who are found to be guilty are now sent, if they're senior officers, they are sent to the board for further interrogation. It's a slow process. It's very frustrating. The Controller General feels like dismissing people instantly, but he doesn't have the powers. So we are having to just follow the process. There is a mandate by the federal government how to try airing officers, and we just have to follow it. It's frustrating.
And experts are saying that you're understaffed, that you need to employ more.
Oh yes, but that is for the Controller General and the Minister to sort out. I don't have power to negotiate.
Let's Dr. Hamisu and His Excellency, we just have less than 60 seconds. So how do we, moving forward now, what should NIS be doing in terms of addressing the issue of the racketeering and fast-tracking passports? Yes.
Okay. Let me first of all commend the Minister as well as the Controller General for taking this bold initiative, because I understand from my research it's coming from ACAO, and we must become global in our approaches so that we are able to participate in whatever that is going on globally. What they need to do going forward is just one thing: review, rectify.
Okay, review, rectify.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
Well, I will just add, the immigration needs to work closely with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, particularly the missions. When summer is approaching or when the Yuletide is approaching, they should work together to sensitize Nigerians to come early to process their traveling documents. Then secondly, I feel probably at a certain point, if this trend continues, maybe immigration needs to be linked up with the EFCC to be a watchdog over them, to checkmate all these reprehensible tendencies.
Yes, that's a good one there. There's a good one. Ambassador Ahmed Umar Malik in Kano, former Nigerian ambassador to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. He also served in various countries, including USA and United Kingdom, where he undertook some reforms in immigration matters in the mission, which we've been discussing. And we also would love to thank Ambassador Nicholas Ella. He's the Director, Consular and Legal Affairs, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Thank you so much for coming on the program. Dr. Abdulrahman Abu Hamisu, political scientist and researcher, and is also a public affairs Analyst, thank you so much for coming on the program as a regular. And we also would love to thank the DCI, Deputy Comptroller of Immigration and Public Relations Officer, Nigerian Immigration Service, who was able to, bring to fore some of the issues there, and it's Tony Akuneme here. Welcome. Yeah, thank you so much for coming.
It's my pleasure.
And we also thank Dr. Karim Olajoku, Technical Advisor, Innovation and Strategy to the Minister of Interior. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
We'll now join our sport decks for details of these and more.
Odion Igalo was on target as Al Hilal thrashed Al Ittifaq 4-0 in their Kings Cup round of 16 encounter at the Prince Faisal bin Fahad Stadium on Wednesday. Igalo opened scoring for Al Hilal on 12 minutes after he was set up by Mohamed Al Buraik. The Nigerian was replaced by Abdullah Otaif a minute after the hour mark. The 33-year-old has now scored 8 goals and recorded 1 assist in 14 appearances across all competitions for Al Hilal this season. In athletics, Russia's Natalia Antioch has been stripped of her 400 meters hurdles gold from London 2012 on the basis of historical data from a Moscow testing laboratory. Antioch, now 41, is already serving a 4-year ban after being named in a World Anti-Doping Agency investigation into cheating by Russia. American